So really, it feels like we just talked about this, but it seems like Spiral from the Book of Saul, Lionsgate, Twisted Pictures, and everybody involved with making this movie is doubling down and making sure that the movie comes out only in theaters, not only in May, but they're pushing it up a week. Now we have a new confirmed release date being that of May 14th, 2021. And no doubt that this is a move motivated by other bigger movies for May having picked up very recently and moving to brighter spots later down the year. And look guys, I'm just going to say it, I'm actually happy to see this movie in theaters. Most states, including mine, are now going to start allowing anybody who wants a COVID-19 shot to get them by the end of the month. So yeah, I'm going to be fully immunized by the time that this movie comes out, and I could go to the movie theater with a little bit more confidence than I had last year when everything was really up in the air and nobody really wanted to go anywhere for anything if you had the opportunity not to, let alone going to a movie theater where, yeah, as someone who worked in a movie theater, they're not the cleanest. So honestly, I was never going to trust that. I still don't really trust it, even if I'm fully immunized. But I did want to take a minute just to say that, because in no way is this news that disappointing to me because I wanted to see it on a streaming service or I don't want to go see it at all in a movie theater. I will. In fact, it's very likely that this movie will be the first movie I go see in a theater over a year because it's just that high on my priority list. The reason I am a little bit disappointed with this news is I think it's kind of a losing bet. We talked about this in my video about whether or not Spiral from the Book of Saul should be going to streaming sometime here in the next couple months instead of being pushed back even further, or what we're getting here, which I think is the worst option out of everything. A theater-only opening when things are still trying to get back to normal, to the point where other big movies are starting to run away entirely or figure out a more streaming-friendly version of the release that they were planning on doing, just, maybe a month or two out. And I do realize that Spiral is not Black Widow. It's not any of these other movies that need to make $1 billion just to be considered a success. But I guess the thing that just keeps eating away at my mind is how much money does this movie have to make in order to satisfy the people who paid money in order to produce it? While I can't echo this sentiment enough that Jigsaw, despite its shortcomings, did in fact make money for all involved, it didn't make enough money. And Spiral doesn't seem to be kind of stepping back and waiting to see a smaller return because you spent less money. It seems very much in line with we're going to go big or go home, bringing in top name talent, and at least from the look of things, putting in a lot more effort and money and time in order to create this film. And while that's exciting, at least on a creative note, as a consumer, I am a little bit terrified that if they open up this movie in a volatile market where it's easy to underperform, as we've been seeing over the last couple months, then it's possible that not only can this movie fail to make the money that it needs in order to satisfy the investors and generally be a positive mark on Lionsgate's bottom line, but it's even more possible that despite all the effort and money they put into it, it could make less than Jigsaw did worldwide. And as a longtime fan of this franchise, or just horror in general, that's kind of concerning to me because, as we all know, yes, we want the movie to come out itself, but we also want that movie to be successful in order to eventually create the sequel that this movie is ultimately going to set up. And a potential failure, at least financially, on the side of this movie could potentially mean that we're not getting another Saw film for a while. It's also very possible that the next time that we do get a Saw film, it's just going to be another stutter start, look what we do now type of thing, instead of a direct continuation from characters from this movie, Jigsaw, or even the original 7 films. Look, I know I've argued in the past that I would love to see this franchise continue as a bit of an anthology, with Jigsaw setting up the last known apprentice for John, this movie dealing with a completely new character that has a little bit of a tangible connection to the overall legacy of the franchise, and the next potential film doing something completely different as they all attempt to weave in various characters that we've seen throughout the first 9 films, and the idea of the 10th film being yet another retooling of the franchise stutter stop, well, maybe this idea will work right now, is not the way I want to get there. I want there to be a through line, somebody who understands this world and what they're trying to build with each new sequel, even though it isn't a direct continuation of the film that came before it. I hope that makes sense because I'm trying to justify the need to have a direct continuation to Spiral, even if that movie is not a direct continuation with the characters that were introduced within this 9th film. Granted, I'm only looking on the negative side right now. It's very possible that things start getting back to some semblance of normalcy in May, or at least to the point where people are willing to go see movies again, and the lack of options allow for much longer legs than we would have otherwise seen from a Saw movie. And given some of the initial tracking for things like Godzilla vs. Kong, which is coming out pretty much this weekend, it seems possible that that could be the case. I've seen reports that Godzilla vs. Kong could potentially make up to $40 million in its first 5 days at the box office, which would completely blow any other pandemic-era release out of the water. Not to mention that that is also going to come out at the exact same time on HBO Max. And an opening like that would go a long way in improving the viability of opening up movies in the theater going forward, especially in the near future. Also, it's important to mention during all of this that other countries are starting to get their rhythm back, opening up and figuring out vaccines and other things to cope with COVID to make moviegoing possible. And the Saw franchise has always done fairly well overseas, so it is kind of possible that any legs that were lost in the domestic box office could be made up internationally. The big problem with relying on international numbers in order to gauge success is that we don't always know how that breaks down. One of the things that everybody always likes to point out is that movie studios only make 25% of ticket sales of everything sold in China, and in other international spaces it's somewhat less than 50% and or 50% depending on the territory. I guess what this really boils down to is, are you going to see the movie in theaters, or are you just going to wait until it's on streaming, VOD, or some other home-related release? Personally, I really love the idea that we're going to be getting it this year, and I can go see it, and we're going to be getting it on home release in the near future. I hope that it lives up to all of my expectations, and I hope that it doesn't blatantly promise a sequel that never happens because somebody decided to release this in theaters during a global pandemic, vaccine or not. But I guess if that is the case and the movie is genuinely a good movie, then nobody can blame anybody for the movie's failures, because things like this really just need to get out there and start generating money for the people who put money into them. Or we're going to be in a very precarious situation where Disney and Warner Brothers are the only two studios that have enough capital and goodwill to create content. And that would just be a real shame. I like having diversity of content, and I like Lionsgate. I want them to stay around. So if this is what they have to do in order to make money, then I'm fine with it. Guys, tell me in the comment section below whether you're going to go see the movie on the 14th or if you're going to be waiting for it in some other form. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.